on record on Zoom, so we're ready to go, Juliette. So firstly, I'd like to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight for our 15 questions in 15 minutes on Facebook Live. Oh, I'm so glad that you're here with me. That's awesome. So as you know, this is the Hello You interview series from Positive Passionate Women in Business, so that we're getting to know our members better, the members that are in the huddle, so we can connect and grow and learn from each other. And as I just said in the chat that I was having with Joanne from Melt, and I said, yeah, it's definitely about that collaborating, not competing. And it feels really good to do that. So I welcome you and I thank you for being here. And so do you feel ready just to get jumping right on into 15 questions?
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yes,
let's get stuck into it then. Oh, so I'll just let everybody know that Juliette is the ocean. Juliette is the founder and owner of IlluminOcean, and you'll find out a little bit more about that very, very soon. So the first question is, Juliette, tell me something about yourself that others may be surprised to learn about you.
Well, I grew up in Hong Kong. So even though I'm English and I speak as though I've lived in England up until yesterday, in actual fact, I grew up in Hong Kong and was there until I was 15 years old. And then I did a stint in Saudi Arabia. I was a flight attendant for Saudi Arabian Airlines. But I have lived in Australia for 30 years now. And sometimes you just can't tell.
Yeah. And so what place would you call home if you had to choose one? And I don't mean home for now, but for me, for example, I'm 47 and I left New Zealand when I was 21, but I am always through and through a Kiwi. Like I will always refer to that when I'm talking about home. So what do you call home?
Well, for a very long time, I called Hong Kong home. But I think probably the last 10 years, I've really started to look at the UK as being home, like old home, because I've been visiting there quite regularly. My mother is quite elderly now. She's in her late 80s. So I tend to have to go there twice a year just to check up on her. And so the more time I spend there, the more kind of aligned I am with the UK again. So yes, I would say that UK is my old home now.
Wow.
Took a while.
And what part of the UK?
I grew for a few years there. I was in Tunbridge Wells with my family after I left, I suppose after O-levels. So I spent maybe 4 years there. And Tunbridge Wells, Royal Tunbridge Wells, is actually in Kent. But my sister went to university in Devon down at in a place called Exeter, and she stayed in Devon. So she has lived there for the last 40 years or so. Yeah. And my mother now lives there too. So when I go to the UK, I go and stay in Devon. Yeah.
How wonderful. Absolutely. Yeah, it is a very, very beautiful spot. That's gorgeous. So if there was something in your past that you were able to go back and do differently, what would that be?
Yes, it's interesting. I think there are so many things I'd probably do differently, but try not to sweat the small stuff. And I think the thing that I really would have done differently, or I wish I would have done differently, is to have paid more attention in maths. I just feel that is a skill that I need, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball. And so probably to have paid attention at maths in school would be what I would say.
That's such.
But other than that, you know, there are so many things, you know, with hindsight, you think you could do better or differently, but that's probably the one that sticks with me.
It's a really interesting one, because I'm sure that there are many, many, many of us that think at school, oh, I'm not going to need that. Why would I need that? And so you just don't really try, and then you give up, and you know, I'm not going to be an accountant, so what would I need maths for? But of course, maths is in every single thing we do in every part of our lives. So interesting one, isn't it? Oh, if only we knew back at school what we know now.
Exactly, yes.
So Juliette, what do you love most about what you do, which is a great opportunity for you to tell people about what you do?
Well, I've always been involved in travel and tourism, and I worked for a while for Disney for maybe 8 years ago. 8 years at the end of the 90s, doing travel industry sales and marketing for them, which was fantastic. I've worked for a few other tourist attractions and destinations. But about 10 years ago, I set out on my own, and I specialized in diving destinations. So I was repping pretty much for dive destinations and dive operators that are based overseas. I was repping for them in Australia. And then a few years ago, which was great, I loved it, absolutely loved it. And a few years ago, I launched with a co-founder who actually lives in Byron Bay, a touring speakers series around Australia, featuring international underwater photographers, and we would fly them in and we would tour the major capital cities at lovely venues, and they would stand up on stage and show their incredible images of underwater creatures and landscapes, and they would tell the stories about how they got that image, what that animal was doing, you know, all the sort of stories from behind the lens, as we call it. And that was all going fine. We were 3 years in. We'd had a very successful couple of years, but then of course this situation has happened where no one can travel and no events, etc. And I thought, well, let's pivot. And that's actually when I first met you, Kylie, through the local networking groups and your workshops. My need to pivot meant that I needed to learn a lot of digital marketing. So what I do now is I run IlluminOcean. It's two things. It has a sort of a two-pronged approach. I'll do local events as soon as events are allowed. I've got a couple scheduled for September and October, and if I need to move them back, of course I will. But again, internationally acclaimed underwater photographers just speaking in the local community, which I'm very excited to bring this kind of caliber speaker to the Northern Rivers. So I have the events planned, hopefully from September onwards, if not October onwards, or whenever you know, we're allowed to do that again. And I have a podcast as well. And I have, through my years with the dive industry, I've met a lot of very interesting photographers and filmmakers, and I have a long list of people that I'm going to be interviewing, but launched my first episode week before last, called Orca OMG, and there are many more to come.
So wonderful. I just realized I mentioned the podcast in the caption of this live.
Oh, great,
but I didn't do a link to it, so perhaps if you, when we finish, can jump into the comments and do a link so that people can
sure.
Listen in, that would be wonderful, because it was very
they can find it everywhere you find a podcast. It's there, you know, whether it's Apple, whether it's SoundCloud, Spotify, IlluminOcean. That's what you're looking for, but I will. Yes.
Fabulous. That's so exciting. I'm so happy for you, Juliette. Well done. Thank you. It's so much fun. It really is. Launching a podcast, and well done. It's brilliant. And I'm glad you're really enjoying it. That's awesome. That's super cool. So what is it that you love least about what you do?
Oh, well, I think I've touched on this a little bit. Accounts. Yeah, definitely. It's the paperwork, it's the accounts, it's the tying up the loose ends. You know, I do love to run with big ideas and make them happen, but you have to also be good with all your follow-up and all your paperwork. So I do, but you know, it's the least enjoyable part of what I do.
So interestingly enough, Joanne, who I know that you were listening to just earlier from Mount, she said the exact same thing. Yes, and the webinar that I was running this afternoon, I brought that up in that one as well. It was all about processes and systems. I believe that you were in there, and of course I brought up Xero, and I went, I don't actually really enjoy it, but it is a very good tool for your business. So I think there are a number of us that don't really love that. We think we probably need a few more in the Positive Passionate Women in Business group, don't we, that are numbers people, or if they're in there, they need to make themselves known and come on and do the Hello You interview. So we can
or they could coach us. They could do workshops and coach us.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. Indeed. So if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
I wasn't doing IlluminOcean. Well, I would still be repping for dive resorts. I would still be sort of in that world. But I did have plans at the beginning of last year of taking IlluminOcean to Europe, actually. So I would probably be planning a touring series in Germany and Switzerland at this point in time, and also one on the West Coast USA. So that's very much on hold for another time. But I did enjoy my time repping for dive resorts as well. So, you know, I'd love to have one or two clients that I could still do that for, and all in good time.
Have you ever been to the Solomon Islands?
I have, yes.
Wow, because
I lived there for a year.
Oh, really? So I have not ever been, but I had a woman do a number of my courses, and her brother lives there and runs a resort over there. And just watching her and helping her, you know, with her website and things, the photos were just beyond, absolutely beyond anything I could even imagine. It was just glorious. So yeah, definitely one spot that I'd love to get to, but apparently it's a very, very tricky spot to get to.
It's I think you can fly normally. You can fly from Brisbane. You know, it has its challenges. The Solomon Islands, lovely people, but there is a kind of a underlying ripple there, and you do need to, as foreigners, you need to be quite careful, I suppose, in the city anyway, perhaps not so much in the villages where everybody knows everybody. But yeah, no, it is an interesting place. I really enjoyed my year there. The underwater scenery is without doubt, you know, the most beautiful I've ever seen. Incredible experiences, and that's when I got into underwater photography in the Solomon Islands.
Wow, amazing. Well, if I can track down that website, I'll send it to you, because some of the images are just it's all underwater.
Yes, please.
I mean, underwater photography.
Yeah, there aren't many resorts there, so I would probably know exactly who they are. That sounds really good.
Probably. All right, so what's been your biggest success in your working life? What are you feeling that you're most proud of?
Well, I think, you know, that's a big question. And I think that launching my business 10 years ago was probably, you know, the biggest step I've ever taken in my career. I think when you've been employed all your life and you then step out and risk everything, you know, I think that was probably it. But I tried to sort of mitigate the risk there. I was living in Sydney at the time, and I had a little townhouse, and I rented it out, and I moved up to the Blue Mountains, where I didn't know a soul, but the rent was really, really cheap. And I stayed there 18 months while I tried to launch my business, get enough clients on board so that I could afford to come back to Sydney. So that was my sacrifice. And I did, while I was in the Blue Mountains, I got my first dive resort client, and I subsequently worked with them for 8 years. And I'm very fond of everybody there, and I'm still in touch with them. And it's one of those lovely places that I'd like to go back to. So I think stepping away from a corporate life and sort of setting up your own business for the first time, for me, that was the biggest thing, and the thing I'm most proud of, probably. Yeah.
Oh, damn, that is amazing. And what amazing foresight to realize, or something to realize, that stepping away from, you know, where you weren't living in your dream spot necessarily, but you needed to do it for a certain period of time to achieve what was going to be your next. So there's this beautiful little saying that Tony Robbins talks about doing it for your future self. And that's exactly what you did. And that was just wonderful. I hadn't heard that phrase before until last year when I went to one of his courses, workshops or something. And it really resonated with me. And I thought, yes, I think a lot of us need to think about the doing something for our future self. So it's not necessarily comfortable right now, but it's going to be of a huge impact in our future. So that's awesome, Juliette. Well done on that. So who are your dream clients, and what type of jobs do you like to do the most within IlluminOcean?
Who are my dream clients? Well, I love connecting with anybody who's passionate about the underwater world, whether it's photography, whether they're marine scientists. You know, I just sort of feed off that passion and that curiosity. And I especially love meeting youngsters who have identified that that's what that they want to do or they're curious about. And one of the presentations I did last year with Underwater Tour, which I can only really relate to that at the moment, we had 2 National Geographic photographers, very famous, who were our keynote speakers. And in Adelaide, in particular, we invited school kids, STEM students from a number of schools in each city to fill empty seats that we had. In Adelaide, you could see all the kids gather round these 2 speakers, just firing off questions. You know, how did they get to be where they are? You know, what did the kids need to do to be able to have that kind of life that the speakers were having, etc. And I think those are my dream audiences, really. So those are my dream audiences, people that really want to know and want to learn and are curious about the underwater world. And my dream speakers are the ones that really want to share their experiences. Yes. So at the moment, I can't really talk about commercial clients as in sort of consulting, etc. But that's how I would answer your question.
That's awesome. It's very, very inspiring. I can't wait to be able to come to some of your events. That's super exciting. So what challenges do you see impacting your industry?
Well, it's happening right now, isn't it? You know, the travel and tourism industry, the events industry, you know, it's the last 6 months have been catastrophic. And moving forward, you know, I just wonder this time next year what the fallout's going to be. You know, there are a lot of resorts, excellent resorts, who won't be able to survive this downturn, you know, not having guests coming. You know, they're going to find it very hard to market themselves when things get back to normal, because they won't have the budgets, you know, unless they've got deep pockets and sort of big reserves. You know, I worry that we're going to, for a while anyway, lose a lot of beautiful diving resorts and diving yachts and liveaboards around the place. Of course, the airlines are in strife. You know, that worries me. We're in the biggest challenge that our industry has ever faced, and no one really knows the answers, do they?
Gosh, that is so true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, because, for example, within Australia, that we can't leave, so that the people are going to do more of those holidays within their own country and explore more of what's going on? So maybe some of our resorts or whatever might survive a little better than they would have possibly.
Yes, definitely.
Said, while there's shutdowns of each state, it's going to be hard to know also, isn't it? Because
I agree, but I think that, you know, those are a little more temporary, I hope, you know, we hope, fingers crossed, than the international border shutdowns. But yes, of course, yeah, I mean, the domestic tourism operators will certainly see some recovery that hopefully will put them in good stead for the future, you know, sort of help make up for these last months where they've lost everything. So yes, your fingers crossed, they will bounce back and they'll be supported well by the Australian domestic market and the local markets as well. I mean, I know that the Queensland liveaboards from Cairns going out to do diving and snorkeling off all their pontoons and reefs, you know, they've been going since July, marketing to Queenslanders, for example. So, you know, thank goodness they've been able to sort of get back to it. And WA would probably be doing very well as well. So yes, I think that the domestic market hopefully will do well out of it, you know, once everybody can travel a bit more freely.
Yes, let's hope.
Yeah.
So changing tagged a little here, but what did you want to be or do when you grew up?
Actually, this is, I've thought about this a lot over the years, because people have asked me, and when I was about 11 or 12, I wanted to be a scuba diver and a nun. And I'm obviously a scuba diver, and there were many years here and there where I've been a nun too, or it seems like it. So so I think, yeah, I think, yeah, it was funny. Yeah, 11 or 12, definitely wanted to be a scuba diver and a nun. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I love it. So what about if you're an animal? Which one would you be?
Now I was listening to Joanne earlier, and oh, she had such a great answer. She said a seal, didn't she? And I went, God, yeah, of course. My answer is a manta ray. I'd like to be a manta ray.
Oh.
Because they look like they are just flying through the water. They're just absolutely incredible. In fact, I saw my first manta rays in the Solomons. Yes.
Wow.
So very happy for me there. But yes, I'd like to be a manta ray, I think.
Wow, I have never seen one in the ocean, but I can only imagine how exciting that is to be under one or above one or something.
Yes. Have them all flying over you. These enormous things, they sort of block out the sun as they're gliding over you. Oops, sorry. Very graceful and yeah, just beautiful animals.
Oh, how extraordinary. So if you're a movie character, which one would you be in what movie?
Oh, no, I don't know if I've got an answer for this. I was thinking of, I'd like to be anything that Goldie Hawn has been. It's probably more about the actor rather than the character. And so I don't think I don't remember movies. I don't remember the names particularly well, or the plots. Once I've seen them, I find it hard to be able to say, oh, you remember that one? I can't get it. So yeah, I haven't got a good answer for that one, but loved Goldie Hawn and everything she's done.
I just watched one of her movies just recently, and it was I don't know how many decades old, but it was the First Wives Club, with Bette Midler.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember the other one, but it was so funny, and I really enjoyed it. I haven't seen any of her stuff in probably decades, so it was good. It was nice to revisit. I've been revisiting a whole lot of old stuff lately, which has been really fun. Okay, so. Oh, hang on. I'm just looking for we're up to number 12. So if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live?
I do love living here, I have to say. Really pleased that I moved up here 4 years ago.
And where are you, Juliette?
I'm in Corndale, little valley in between Clunes and Bexhill, really, off to the side there. So
but just nearby.
On a bigger scale. Between Bangalore and Lismore, yes, just inland of Byron Bay, about 35 k's inland of Byron Bay, on a couple of acres here in a little old farmhouse. Yes,
beautiful.
But if it is beautiful. But if I wasn't here, Hong Kong, a bit tricky nowadays. It makes me very sad to see the news and see what's going on there. But if everything was great over there, there's a little island outside Hong Kong harbour called Chung Chau, and it's a fishing village, and there are very, very few cars on it. Everybody walks around. You get there by ferry. A few people commute. You get a lot of creatives living there. I'd live there if things were well in Hong Kong. But I've always liked New Zealand as well. If I couldn't live in Australia, I love New Zealand. I love New Zealanders. I think they have their very own style. Also like your Prime Minister.
Yeah, so do I. It's funny that you mentioned New Zealand, because while you were talking earlier, I was thinking about when I was in my teens, and we had a beach house. It's over there, we call it a batch. But we had a batch at Hahei, which is, I'm not sure if you've ever been to Hahei or to Hotwater Beach, but it's on the Coromandel. And my brother was a scuba diver. My boyfriend, who had the batch next door, he was a scuba diver. And so I used to be boat girl. So we would go out, we'd drive the tractor down to the beach, we'd launch the boat, I'd jump in, off we'd go. I'd be boat girl with the flag while they were diving. And, lots of the friends, were divers too. And they'd come up with incredible crayfish. And it was a very amazing way to spend your summer holidays and your weekends. Living, I was not able to dive for health stuff, but it was just amazing to be part of that. And so they had things like blowholes and caves and so many amazing things to experience. So yeah, that's definitely a spot that you should look up sometime, is the Coromandel.
Definitely. Yes, I will.
Exploring around there is pretty beautiful. So yeah, it's probably one of my favorite parts of the world, is a little bit of Coromandel time. Haven't been there for a
Well, I've been to the beach that was in the piano, you know, with the black sand and everything. Is that very far away? Or?
Yeah, that's the other coast.
Oh, it's the other coast. Oh, whoops. Okay. All right. No, I will definitely explore more.
And it's Coromandel's only about 2 hours away from Auckland, so it's not, or just a bit over. But there's lots and lots and lots of beaches. But hot water beaches, that when the tide is right, you can dig. There's people down there digging with a spade, and you make your own little pool, and you sit in it, and it's boiling, bubbling water coming out, but then the cold water coming in and splashing over you. So keeping this glorious little self-made spa that only lasts, you know, for time on the tide, but really, really magical, something pretty unique and pretty gorgeous. Okay, yes, hot water beach, that's right. So what does being a positive and passionate woman in business mean to you?
Well, it's really interesting, because I also heard Joanne talk about this, and I've made some notes a few days ago, and I'm just going to have a quick look at them. But you know, I think that I haven't really taken advantage of it yet. I'm a new member, but I love the concept, and I love the idea of encouragement that everyone in this group is giving everyone else. Because I used to be in such a competitive corporate environment in sales and marketing, where, you know, it was probably a little superficial, and people weren't really helping each other. You know, it's all about achieving what you have to achieve in the corporate world. And so for me, it's really refreshing being introduced to a group of women who are genuinely sharing and helping each other, you know, to do whatever it is each one wants to do. So it's a very new thing for me, and I'm loving it, and I do want to be more involved in the future.
Wonderful. Well, our next meetup is coming up very soon, and we have our next speaker is Jenny Walk, and she's been a speaker a number of times because she's that wonderful, and her business is Elephant in the Room Consulting, and I just love our online meetups. I really do. So I have missed a little bit, well, a lot, our physical meetups too, but because now of COVID, we've taken them all online, and we've been able to expand a lot. So we have members now. We've got a member from the UK, a few members from New Zealand, different parts of Australia, which is lovely, because up until now it's been all very much based around the Byron Shire. So it's really, really nice to have grown in that.
That's the flip side. Yeah, that's the flip side of being in this sort of Zoom world. Yes, there are no borders.
Absolutely, it's been so wonderful. I've really enjoyed the direction that it's taken itself, really. You know, there's been no planning of that. It's just happened and evolved, and I've just let it flow, which has been really, really fun. So what are you most proud of in your life?
In personal life, let me think. Well, I suppose a lot of people would say their children. I mean, I would start by saying, you know, being here where I am today, it's a journey, isn't it? It's a path. It's not just one thing. You sort of arrive at this through all these years. But yeah, and finding a way to make moving to the Northern Rivers happen. I'm very proud of that I actually found my way here after wanting to for 25 years. I finally made it up here. My grown children are 30 and 31, and they both live in Melbourne. Now they live in Melbourne, and I'm very proud of my daughter Holly. She works very hard. She's in the hospitality industry, and she's coping with the fallout of all of COVID, and sort of opening up her pub and having to shut it down again, and you know, everything that's involved there. But she's been very careful. My son is tackling mental health issues, and he was recently accepted into a therapeutic community after a very tough time, and he was on standby there for 4 months, while COVID first happened, and they couldn't, even though he was due to go in February, you know, the shutters came down there, so he had to wait, which was a very worrying time for all of us. But I heard from him 2 days ago. That's the first phone call I've had from him, and he's doing very well. He's doing very well, and I'm very proud of him. So I guess that sort of sums up what I'm proud of. My children, you know, dealing with life's challenges, and you know, the fact that we're all here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done, Juliette. That must feel immensely.
Well, it's a relief. It's
But also the fact that they're in Melbourne right now while there's this whole next level of lockdown. So I just know with my mum and the rest of my family in New Zealand, and the fact that I can't go there no matter whether I want to or not. And that feels awful. But for you, you're in the same country as them, and can't get to them. It's just such intense times, isn't it? And you know, so it's beautiful to hear how proud you are of them. That's just gorgeous. So the 15th and final question is, what's one tip that you can share of how you stay positive when things are challenging?
Know that tomorrow is a new day. I think that's my one tip. However it seems late in the evening, and you know, if you are the worrying type, and if things are getting you down, the late afternoons and evenings can be very tough. But tomorrow is a new day.
That's a beautiful, beautiful note to leave us with. That's absolutely gorgeous, and it just made me think of the musical Annie, and the song come out.
Yes, indeed. Yep.
I haven't thought of that in a really long time, but there you go. Into my head. I loved a little bit of Annie. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing 15 minutes of and a little bit longer, of your time with us tonight and with me, and answering all those questions, because it's just great to be able to get to know you in a different way, and learn about some of what you've been doing and where you've been journeying. And I can't wait for the next part of your journey, and to get everybody listening to your podcast and following you on your socials. So in the caption, you can find out how to get in touch with Juliette. There's her Facebook there. Maybe if you want to put into the comments your Instagram, and of course the link to you know, podcast would be wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of what you're doing and connect with you more in Positive Passionate Women in Business. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. And yeah, thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
You too.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Juliette.